Alright, so on this slide, here is the nucleus. It says oculomotor nucleus. So that's a cranial nerve that sends motor neurons to muscles that move the eyeball. And those are lower motor neurons. And upper motor neurons would come from the precentral gyrus and would come in and cause those motor neurons to fire. Yes?
I got lost. What page are you on?
Starting with the cranial nerves, we are on just kind of, I'm just doing a preview. And so that's actually, skip ahead of the pathways, it's on page 130.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And so these are the equivalent of the anterior gray horn. The lower motor neurons that we find in our cranial nerves are found in the brainstem, but we don't have posterior gray horn, anterior gray horn, lateral gray horn in the brainstem, right? But we still have a nuclei of those motor neurons, and they are named for the specific cranial nerves. Sometimes they're round, sometimes they're long columns that pass between the pons and the medulla, so there are various shapes. But that's what we would have for motor neurons. All right? Now, a sensory neuron. Trigeminal nerve is primarily sensory. It does have some lower motor neuron components, but it's primarily sensory. So where did we find the cell bodies of our first sensory neuron? What did they form in the spinal cord? Yes, the dorsal root ganglion. So let's say here's a trigeminal neuron from my lip. All right, so when I touch my lip and I activate that, it's going to carry sensory information towards the pons. It's going to form a sensory ganglion outside of the brainstem, and then it will come in and synapse with the second neuron, which will cross, go up to my brain for processing as coming from my lip. So similar types of structures, all right? This would be a sensory ganglion of the trigeminal nerve. So each sensory part of a cranial nerve will have its own ganglion or its own motor nuclei. All right, it's distinct structures when compared to spinal nerves. Now, that overview of the different types of fibers that are in those lecture notes we'll do on Thursday. I just want to give you kind of an overview here of the location. And then we'll go over this material again on Thursday. I'm giving you material here to work with the brainstem on over through the week. So here's a diagram of the brainstem, all right, and the brain. And every structure in yellow is a cranial nerve. So on the page 131 of your lecture notes is a table of these cranial nerves, all right? When we describe cranial nerves, we number them in a with a Roman numeral, 1 through 12. If you're not familiar with, yes? It's on page 131?
No, I mean that picture.
Oh, it's no. Well, as you look at each, I use a different picture. So 1 through 12 are the numbers for the cranial nerves, and if you're not sure what Roman numerals are, they're the ones that look like this, where an X is 10 and a V is 5. You'd be surprised, I found a number of people that don't know what Roman numerals look like. All right, so 12 cranial nerves, and I'm going to go over this over and over and over, okay? So 12 cranial nerves, the first one, whoops, the wrong one up here. The first one is olfactory. Just sit back and listen right now. This is all written down on your chart. Second one is optic. The third one is oculomotor. Fourth is trochlear. So we take 5 and put 1 on the left side of that. Means we subtract 1, so that's 4. 5 is trigeminal. and 6 is abducens. That's all we're going to work with today for now. Okay? So as we look at the nerves, you can learn them by number first. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and learn them from front to back in numerical sequence. And then you can come back and say, this is the third. 1, 2, 3. That's the third cranial nerve on old Olympus. Starts with an O. What's the word that starts with an O for the third cranial nerve? Oculomotor. Okay? Or you can just learn olfactory, optic, ocular motor. On the lab exam, I need the name. Okay? Not the number. In fact, I don't want the number, because if you tell me ocular motor and then you say cranial nerve 6, I have one right answer, one wrong answer, both are wrong. Okay? So I just want the name. On the lecture exam, I will give you both. So I will say, which of the following cranial nerves functions to slow the heart rate down? Ocular motor, parentheses, cranial nerve 3. Vagus, parentheses, cranial nerve 10. Glossopharyngeal, parentheses, cranial nerve 9. So I will never ask you to tell me what cranial nerve number 10 is, or what's the cranial nerve number of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, so I actually want the name, or I will give you a name and number. So on your lecture notes is this mnemonic: on old Olympus, that's a mountain, towering top, a spin in German, do some hops. Okay, there are funnier, dirty ones. Turn off your recorders.